the leader of sovereignty. Sovereignty, if you're not aware, is for independence. We also want to stay out of the European Union. I'm going to be the sovereignty candidate in Shetland. I will also be on the Highlands and Islands regional list. We are looking for candidates, so if you're interested, if you think what is said here makes sense, then do let us know and we'll get in touch with you.
So Brian, let's kick off with this one. This is one we hear fairly often from folks, which is surely the SNP is the only vehicle for achieving independence. It's the biggest quote unquote pro-independence party. Why not just vote SNP?
Well, I have no one to vote for. I won't be voting SNP. I will not vote for a unionist party. The problem is the SNP have lost their way. I'm not talking about the SNP membership here. There's lots of good people in the SNP and some of them are my friends. I'm talking about the SNP leadership. It's their lack of vigour with regard to getting independence. I joined the SNP in 1974 and the party was definitely in favour of independence then. In the 1980s, the SNP lost their way then. They started to talk about independence in Europe. I could never get the logic of that. We're going to leave one union so that we can join an even bigger one. Where is the sense in that? I hung around for a while, but after listening to so many SNP spokespersons going into contortions trying to justify independence in Europe, I eventually resigned. I believe in independence. I do wonder if the SNP still do. And I'm beginning to suspect that it's actually worse than that because I think they're actively working against independence. They see devolution rather as the be-all and end-all. They want to administer devolution for whoever happens to be in London in government at the time. They get majorities of seats and they do nothing about it. How many majorities do the SNP want? 2016 Scottish election, 2021, the majority of seats were won by the SNP on 46.5% and then 47.7% share of the vote, and they did nothing. In 2015, the SNP got 56 out of 59 seats, and they got 50% of the vote. 56 seats out of 59 and 50% of the vote. Why are we not independent? The SNP, I'm afraid, have sat back. Winnie Ewing famously was told by Harold Wilson to settle down. And Winnie said, I'm not here to settle down, I'm here to settle up. I'm afraid the SNP have settled down. They've gone native. They enjoy the trappings of being in London. Apparently they've got power. As an aside, the Brexit by-election, 1/3 of SNP voters voted to leave. So didn't anyone in SNP headquarters say, wait a minute, something not right here? 2017 general election, 35 seats. 2019, 48 seats. 2024, that crashed to 9 seats. 9 seats. Obviously, independence supporters are finding somebody else to vote for. They no longer trust the SNP. So how are we going to achieve independence? Well, let's try this exactly the same plan as we had before. It tried and failed before. We'll go for a majority. The SNP will then ask for a referendum, and they'll be told no. London will say no. And if you saw Starmer's comments on Twitter today, that's exactly what's going to happen. So the SNP will administer devolution, and they will wait for the next election. I'm afraid that the SNP now are about the SNP rather than independence.
So can you say a little bit about what makes sovereignty different?
Well, we want independence, and that's what the major purpose of the party. We are planning to be around after independence. I dare say the SNP are too. But if we have a majority of MSPs, that's enough to trigger, as far as I'm concerned anyway, UDI, Unilateral Declaration of Independence.
So diehard SNP supporters, party insiders and so on will say they want you to vote SNP 1, SNP 2. What's wrong with that approach?
Well, it's tried and tested and failed. I think the SNP are actually working against independence. The last set of elections, what happens is when you win constituency seats, that counts against the regional votes that you get under the D'Hondt system. And in 2016, the SNP got over 95,000 regional votes. And for that, they got 4 seats. And the problem then, 2021, they got over 1 million votes. And for that increase of 100,000, their 4 seats went down to 2. What the SNP are proposing is that people throw away this vote and give it to the unionists. The benefactors here are the unionists. They get smaller amounts of regional votes, but they clean up the seats. So if the SNP are going for the same policy, they're going to get the same result. They're going to bring unionist MSPs into the parliament. There's no logic to it. Independence supporters should use their regional vote for a party or an independent, whoever who supports independence. Get more independence supporting MSPs, not more unionist. And if we've got enough independent supporting MSPs in Edinburgh, at that point, we can declare UDI, Unilateral Declaration of Independence. You have to wonder quite how long the SNP want to keep this going. We have no legal way to get independence. We've been in court and we've been thrown out. We've no political route because the SNP keep messing it up. So UDI is the way forward. And just to say,
so I mean, it makes sense. Westminster doesn't provide a mechanism, and so UDI is a mechanism for achieving independence that other states have used in the past and even been backed by the United Kingdom in that. So it's perfectly legitimate to say, with all other democratic and parliamentary routes, all other parliamentary and judicial routes closed off to us, why not UDI? I mean, what's left, right? How else are the people of Scotland supposed to self-determine? So one final question before we turn to look at sovereignty specifically. What can independence supporting MSPs do? What difference does it make to have independence supporting MSPs in Holyrood?
Well, it shows what the voters wanted. If there's 950,000 regional voters the first time round and over 1 million the second time, it's their vote is getting a result. If we fill it up with unionist MSPs instead, it just gives the SNP an opportunity to grandstand against their opponents. It's time for voters to have a look at the system, work out in whatever constituency, whatever region, work out who to support and take that forward. And I'm not saying that a sovereignty MSP would support the SNP. If they come up with good policies, yes, support that. But stuff like ULEZ and so on, GRR, all of the nonsense that they go through, free ports, on a case-by-case basis, independent supporters would expect independence supporting MSPs to make a decision on the quality of the policies.
So finally, perhaps maybe you can say, answer a couple of things for us. First of all, what makes sovereignty different as a party? What are the party's strengths? And secondly, if people are interested in getting involved in a party that's far more on the front foot in fighting for independence and is putting independence front and centre, what can people do to get involved?
Well, the involvement thing, first of all, we're on Twitter, we're on, we've got a website, you can contact us that way. We're going to get our Facebook more established. There will be plenty of information coming out on what makes us different. We don't want to be in the European Union, and there's plenty of people who don't. I'm afraid that many SNP spokespeople talk about getting independent and going straight back to the European Union. 2016 was 9 years ago. Things have changed, not necessarily for the better for the European Union. Why would you just automatically go back in? The SNP and whoever else have to ask the voters, and obviously we'd be supporting the don't go inside. Obviously have to get a snappier title than that, but I certainly voted leave and I was happy with the result. We also have positions on the sanctity of life, and we're against things like the gender recognition reform, which is still in the Scottish Parliament. It's still there. It's still built into a lot of hospitals, Sandy Peggy. It's in schools. If you read the book Women Who Wouldn't Wheesht, there's a whole chapter there about how Stonewall took over the Scottish government. Is that really something you want to vote for? Stonewall got the policy going and the MSPs slavishly followed it. I don't very often say well done to the Conservatives. They were the only party that stood against it. There were 2 consultations. Both of them said no. the MSPs went ahead and said dealt with it anyway. So there's something wrong there. Let's have the people choosing MSPs that are there to represent the people, not represent advocacy groups. The end.
Well said. Well said. Well, I would just like to thank everyone for joining us. Please, if you haven't subscribed to the Sovereignty channel, do so now. It only takes a second or two to press the little thumbs up button. We really would appreciate your subscriptions. It helps us with the algorithm. And I would like to thank Brian Nugent, the Sovereignty Party leader and also candidate for Shetland in the forthcoming Scottish Parliament elections, for joining us on the podcast. And we'll see you again. All the best. Bye-bye.